Welcome to Sacred Success Salon, where we get to discover how to own your power and confidence so you can live your purpose, your soul purpose, and your prosperity. I am your host, Soul Purpose Catalyst, Anna Kowalska, and today I am excited beyond belief to be here with Frankie Finn. Hello, Frankie.
Anna, I'm equally excited because you're super cool, and I love the whole purpose behind this Sacred Success Salon is really just amazing. So thank you for putting this on, and to all the amazing people who are showing up for this stuff and listening.
Yes, yes. Thank you to, yeah, I love that. Thank you to the people who are showing up and listening. Otherwise, it's you and me just talking, which is
Yeah,
great,
which is
right?
still pretty cool, but it's
Yeah,
even cooler that you guys get to get some amazing stuff from it too.
yes, 100%. So let me just take a second here, or maybe two, and introduce you to our audience so they know why we are listening to you and why we're having this conversation. So Frankie Finn is a world-renowned speaker, author, entrepreneur, and a leader of the mystical arts. He is a highly intuitive shaman who uses spirit, energy, and plant medicine to heal life's biggest challenges. He helps entrepreneurs build purposeful, thriving businesses with freedom and leverage. I love it. Straight to the point and crispy clear. So when we connected first, Frankie, we just had such a powerful conversation about what we are both up to in the world. And there was just such synchronicity in what we are creating together that I had to have you on the show. And additionally, at the Less Sacred Success Salon, I had a couple people ask me, more than a couple, about plant medicine and where I stand with that. So I knew I had to have an expert who uses it in their work. And you showed up for this conversation, which is perfect, right? I ask and I get it.
Yeah, totally, and it's I'm probably the last guy who should be talking about it too.
Uh-oh. So let's hear your story. Share with us what was your journey from where you were and then how you got to be where you are and how the plant medicine played a role in it.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned Anna because, like I said, I'm probably the most unlikely candidate in that I grew up with two like really alcoholic parents, and my dad in particular dabbled in everything. So if there was a chemical or a substance of some kind, he has certainly at least tried it.
Hmm.
And seeing the harmful effects of that my entire life was really kind of like it was kind of a shocking childhood, but it really also made me a kind of person that I couldn't have imagined coming out of it. And you know, this caused me to like really be against the whole idea of doing drugs, which is why I say it's really funny that I'm this plant medicine guy now, because I grew up saying drugs are bad. If you ever do drugs, and it never occurred to me that there were certain substances that actually, when used in a certain capacity, had the ability to enhance your capacity. And so I had an experience, and I was going through this probably in 2010, and it was all leading up to when December 2012, and everybody said the Mayan calendar, the world was going to end. In many ways, for me, it was a very real transition point because I had my first kind of near-death, mystical, afterlife-y kind of whatever you'd like to call it
Yeah.
experience, like literally days before. And so my reality was just like forever changed in a way I couldn't imagine. And this whole thing was always going on simultaneously while I was going on this business journey to grow my own income and show up in the world and to help other people do that, as well as a whole lot of synchronicities where it was just like I was felt like, Alice just going deeper and deeper in the rabbit hole. And this has all culminated into, uh, really some of the hardest lessons that I've ever had to learn, like you do as well, where you realize when you struggle with something your whole life and you finally figure it out, it's like it's almost your moral obligation to give it back to everybody else who's you, so that they don't have to go through a 20-30 year struggle to figure that out. And so that's what we're doing in our journeys, really, is helping people that are like us to shortcut the journey from 20 years to 2 months or 3 months.
Wow. So give us an insight to like where you were and then what happened, like really tangibly. We want to get into your world because I think it's really what you shared so far is really powerful. You came from a world upbringing where and I want to be careful about this because there are drugs that are harmful, and you were really pretty clear about that. There are drugs that are harmful, and I'm not against anything. There are drugs that alter our reality, right? In a way to get out of the reality, to avoid it. And then
Yeah.
there are substances that actually help us enhance it. So we get out of reality, but it's only because the reality that we're living in, we can't see what else is possible, right?
Yeah,
Is
totally.
that fair? Yeah. So tell us like what was happening, and like as concisely as you can, what was happening that led you to say, hey, I'm going to try plant medicine?
It was really interesting because I was deep in the conspiracy world and the world was rigged. And I heard a speaker mention this ayahuasca stuff, and it led me to 2 years of research and trying it a couple of times on my own and having the same synchronicity 15 to 20 times a day that led me to a retreat center in Peru, and it really opened up this whole calling and world that I couldn't have imagined. And while that was going on, I was trying to figure out very like real problems. Like I had a crippling anxiety in my business, and every time I would think about doing something really big, it would cause this whole panic in me. And so it was really the perfect storm that led me to trying this, and it's really been amazing to look back and then to be able to give those kind of gifts to other people who are kind of caught up in not necessarily doing what is really purposeful to them, often, just trying to survive capitalism and make a buck, and, feeling stressed out about it, really worried, and knowing that one day you're going to die and you're going to look back on your tombstone and it's not going to say anything cool unless you do something about it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm just gonna pull something from what you said, okay? Are you okay with
Yeah,
that?
please.
So you said the world was rigged and you were in conspiracy. Like you were living in a conspiracy theory
Yeah.
world. Can you just give us a little bit of an insight? Because I am to a degree a conspiracy freak. People don't know that.
Yeah. And what I realized, looking back on it, is, in many ways that's very, very true. Like, the idea, like personally, I'm not trying to tell anybody how to vote or anything like that, but I think it's, regardless of which way you go, it doesn't make a difference because you're voting for capitalism nonetheless, and that doesn't really have a voting system in place, right? It has banks and things like that and other structures. Um, and so I definitely think parts of that are true, but then there's another part of it where you realize when you go through these journeys that you really, really are looking out your eyes and seeing this grand illusion as the self creator. And if you get caught up in what the government is doing and what this person is doing, you start to disempower your ability to change your immediate reality. And it's like a perfect example of this. I hear all the time from like people who are really devout Christian that they want to make a difference in the world and, help the homeless. And there was this big mega church in Texas, and the guy, the like main preacher or whatever, he dressed up as a bum outside his church, and 10,000 people walked by and mostly said kind of mean things to him, and he got it all on film. And then he walked up the aisle later and disrobed and said, this isn't something you just practice on a Sunday for an hour. This is like a real way to live by. And I realized that, when you really think about really helping like real people in the very real tangible sense, you change your reality to a way where maybe I can't set the rules for the entire world, but I can set the rules for my life and the people immediately around me, and make a difference where I can make a difference. And so it was both simultaneously probably one of the most challenging things to work through, but it's also very freeing when you see that you still have the ability to do something about it.
Yeah, this is so great, Frankie, because you touched up on so many different little things that I was just like, wow. One, we do walk around, most of us, and I'm sure you the viewer are not that way. I'm sure you're not that way. But we see these grand things happening in the world, right? And Amazon is burning. This is like these big things, and we're like, what can I do? Like the climate, we forget to step back into our life and say, what can I do right here in my immediate, this is my world, my immediate
Yeah.
people, right? Who in your world is suffering, burning, maybe not physically, but maybe they burning with a desire to do something and they have no idea how to do it. So they're literally are burning inside, right? Like you want to save starving people in Africa. I get it. Who in your world is starving for love that you're not giving them? And like this is the opportunity to look at our immediate life, which we want to be so noble and grand. It's beautiful, but what can you do right in your immediate world? And I think that's really so great that you are talking about that, because it really brings us back to, you have some work to do, right? We all here, that's what we're talking about. We all here have a certain purpose to fulfill. we look at this, I want to help 10,000 people, 1,000,000 people. Well, what about just starting where you are and helping who you can? And then, right, inviting people to work with you from exactly where you are. So this is really great. Like, I love it. So you are living a world, you are ridden with anxiety, which I'm sure a lot of our viewers can I'm sure relate to, because there's so much happening in the world that if you are at all sensitive, and I know that many of you guys are empaths, you're sensitive, all of it is affecting you. And you have all this anxiety, which is now also linked to a business, and then somebody introduces you to plant medicine, you do research, you have synchronicities, and you go dive in. What do?
Well, I mean, it's certainly for me, and again, I'm not telling anybody what their experience will be, but I found personally like a whole shamanic calling that has led to me really helping other people to find their purpose, because a big part of what I discovered in there is in having this eternal moment of infinite creative oneness was to really think about my life and all the things I never would have imagined having time or space to sit and think about and figure it out. And it really changed me in a sense of realizing how connected it all is, that you almost have to make a difference in people's lives if you really want to feel fulfilled and like your life was really, really lived. And I think a lot of people struggle with that for a lot of different reasons. Like some of our clients tell us things like, when they're first getting into this, it's like, I'm good at so many things and I read a lot of books, but I don't know what this one thing is. And a lot of times they're trying to put themselves in somebody else's category. And the very thing to do is to stop that, is to make your own category that's just you. And
I love that.
Yeah, you're a unique snowflake, so stop trying to be, they go, I'm good at yoga, but I'm not the best yoga teacher. I understand manifesting, but there's other people who do this manifesting stuff better than me, and then they struggle to be feeling like they're useful. Or some people just say, I just have a really hard time putting myself out there. And usually they come from these like really strong corporate environments where when it's meaningless work, they're totally comfortable putting themselves out there and charging a lot of money. But when it's really on their heart, which is usually something more spiritual and a little bit more woo-woo for what, most people would consider them to be, but it's kind of like this secret altered life that they often have. They're like, I don't know how to put myself out there strategically. And it's really amazing when I see people go through these transformations and overcome these, because, they end up having financial breakthroughs, which are often the reason they got started in this, but it's done in a way where they really feel good about it. And I've been, in my own experience, one of the things that I had to learn the hard way was, if you do something that's purely like money motivated to start a business because you want to be free or travel the world, it's not that there's anything wrong with it, but when you reach your money goals, you get really fucking lazy really fast. And because you have no other incentive to keep going. And when you do something that's really purposeful, it was never about the money to begin with. And so the money is just a byproduct of doing that. And what you find is, ironically, you end up making more money when you stop caring about making money, but doing it in a very smart capitalistic way where you're playing by the rules and putting, charging what you're worth and doing that very like strategically. So I don't know if I totally went off topic there or not.
No, there is no such thing in Sacred Success Salon. Like, it literally, we go where energy wants to go. Yeah, it's perfect. And what you shared is right on, because I mean, we're progressing in a conversation of your journey, yet it is going to speak to our viewers who are like, why can't I make money doing the thing that I'm here to do, or the thing that I'm passionate about, or the thing that like calls me, right? And you just hit it on a nail. So you're bringing in all these different concepts and aspects of what we are talking about in Sacred Success Salon. And it's totally that, right? It's like your heart is on the line, your soul is on the line. All of a sudden, all your money stuff starts coming in, right? So it's more challenging. Yet that's the work we're here to do, right? So I'm gonna go back just a little bit, because I love how in your bio you mentioned that you use plant medicine to heal life's biggest challenges. And very often there is like this one or two things that have happened at some point that have become our challenge, right? This thing that we keep stumbling over and over. It looks different, but it's the same thing over and over again, right? And you use plant medicine to help people heal that. Can you talk a little bit more to that?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people who do this become kind of like devotees of plant medicine, and I actually have a very different opinion in that I don't think it's meant for everybody. But I think the people it is meant for, it's the most life-changing thing you'll ever do. And the reason is because it, for me, like, for example, I started reading a book that probably a lot of our listeners have read called Conversations with God. And it was the first time a book like really spoke to me in a deep way that I couldn't explain. But it was a very, very different thing to read about this idea that we're all one. You're creating your own reality. You got to pay a lot of attention to the thoughts you have going on in your head and your feelings. Are you creating them, or are you reacting to what's happening around you? And the plant medicine really showed me all of that experientially, and simultaneous to this whole going on, I've witnessed so many times where people who go through this often in many ways have like 10 years of therapy in a single night. But what ends up happening is they're forever changed. Like for me personally, I'll never forget, like I can remember the exact moment I let go of my anxiety, and it was just like something that had been there. It was just a part of who I was. Like I couldn't even imagine not being anxious, and then just the next day feeling calm and chilled out. And there were still like brief moments where it would show up, but I knew how to fix it in like a couple of seconds. So instead of like having like a 3-day panic attack, it would be like a 3 seconds. I would have a little mini freak out and bring myself back to sane and calm. And it was like when those things really go and you become this new kind of energetic being, it's suddenly where a lot of other things that you've been trying to do outwardly for a long time become a lot easier. And what I've learned from doing it is that a lot of times people just can't figure this out because our human minds just don't make any sense. Like, for example, for me, like an experience that I got to vision is like one of the challenges we help a lot of people with through is money challenges. And I can remember anytime my mom would like do a favor for somebody as a child growing up, I remember people would try and pay her and she like would refuse. No, I can't. And she felt really guilty if she ever did accept it, because she always felt like she was taking something from somebody that could never be replenished. And I didn't realize when I was 10, 20 years later, when I'm showing up in business and there's a potential deal on the table, that as soon as it comes time to get paid, it's downright cringeworthy for me. And that's the energy I'm bringing, that what I'm doing is not okay and that I'm harming somebody and those kind of things. And you don't realize that those are the real things that stop people, even though they often come to us looking for like, hey, I need a better funnel, or
Right.
or whatever. I need the latest tech whiz gadget from Facebook, and they don't realize the traumas they carried their whole life, and the anxieties and the guilt and the shame, and these are the things that prevent them from really doing what they're meant to do. And when they free all that in a single night, and often it's in like really, to be honest with you, Anna, in like really animated ways. Sometimes when we release, it can be, really interesting expressions. Like I can remember, and I say this lovingly, I can remember one girl just going, as she got into the space, just going, "You're so beautiful, and I just love you so much." And she just repeated that over and over for like half an hour, which was just,
Wow.
so, it has really, really interesting ways when it goes, but like it gives you the ability to do 10 years worth of work in a single night. And so in many ways, you'll feel 10 years older, even though, it just went from Tuesday to Wednesday on the calendar.
This is so great, because what you're talking about is, and I love how you said it, like people come to you for another funnel, because so often we are still in a space, and I hear it from people all the time. It's like, I need a new strategy, right? I need a new funnel. I need a better title. My work is just not fine-tuned in enough. And it's really, it may be none of it. It may be some of it. It may be none of it, because you are holding on to some trauma, something. And it doesn't have to be a big trauma. Like it could be like you seeing your mom refuse money and decide that that accepting money for something that you do for people is traumatic. It's like, it's not okay, right? So it's a form of, it's a form of like, you took on a belief, right? And you said your anxiety was part of an identity. So these are like two things you brought up, and it lives in us, in our brain. It lives in our body, in these human cells, and it could take 10 years of talking about it, and you'll never really know what it is and why it's there. And what you're saying is, with plant medicine, you in an experience, what happens, and you may know, you may not know, But what happens that allows somebody in this experience while there are how do you even say this, while they are in relationship with a plant medicine, while they're under influence of it? How do you say it? What's the proper term?
Yeah, whatever, either or. We know
Okay.
what you mean. So,
They smoke something.
yeah.
So you are in this experience and all of a sudden something happens. What is it? Is it a realization? Do you
I mean,
know?
it's a lot of things. Like one of the things that I realized as I experienced it is that there's four basic components to reality. Like one of those is the physical part of it. One of it is your feeling part of your being. Like, you know, when I say that, I don't mean emotions, but I mean like literally just how we feel reality. There's a thinking component of it, which is where most of us spend the greatest deal of time in that space.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the imagination part of it. And what happens is when you get into these, you know, often your mind starts to open up to this nonlinear reality that I like to consider as like this reality is like a subset of this greater like quantum field that you get into. So it's not as if like your present reality stops becoming real, but you can also see it simultaneously like other things. So for example, like in one experience, I remember I could see every little moment of time as like this giant unending honeycomb, just specifically in my life, but I could see every moment I'd ever lived, and they were like, it was like time stood still and I could walk through them without them moving. And it was like a totally non-linear thing, but the space I was in still was there. Nothing had stopped or anything like that. And in doing so, you know, these energies can move you on those four different levels. And so a lot of what happens for people is simultaneously happening on those five levels. So one of those is often physically, like shit really comes out of people as they do it. And so you know, when you hear stories of people throwing up,
Mm-hmm.
And this can be done psychically and energetically. That's one of the fun things to learn, is that you don't have to like puke your guts up. You can just yawn it out or stretch and do those things.
Mm-hmm.
But it comes out of you in one form or another physically. And it also accompanies, like sometimes often, the greatest thoughts you've ever held in your life. Like suddenly you're aware of the fact that Einstein is in the room, and you're like understanding how he thinks and things like that. So you can have these like really high level thoughts. And like to give you a real experience, like, and this is a non-religious experience for me, so I'm not like trying to paint that, but I had a Christ experience, and I remember I just walked in my vision. I was walking up to this like little tiny little island, and there was like Jesus Christ there, and I just knew immediately, like, that's Jesus. That's like the real Jesus. And he was like, you know, very like stereotypical in a way, and he was like, "Come, my child, sit with me." And I remember I was like, well, you can't be Jesus. Like, you wouldn't really look like that if you were Jesus. And he was like, yes, but how else would you recognize me if I didn't show up without every stereotype that you've ever heard about me, so that you know it's me?
Right.
And I remember, I probably still get choked up about it, but I remember, and I was asking some very surface level question, and I was like, Jesus, I'm really stuck on this thing. Like, what would you do if you were me? And in this vision, he looked at me and he was like, Frankie, I've been meditating for 1,000,000 years waiting for you to ask me this question. And I was like, I immediately laughed, because I was like, you know, that sounded so absurd to me. And then I felt a flash in my mind, and I could actually see this being sitting under a tree for 1,000,000 years. And I remember asking this question, and I got the answer, and it immediately led to another question, right? Like, you often, just like as children, you get an answer, you think of something else. What about this? And what about that? And I can't tell you what the question was anymore. I don't even remember at this point. But eventually, after like 20 questions, I'm like, oh, well, that answers the whole thing. And he winked at me and said, like, well, now you know I've been meditating for 1,000,000 years, because I knew I had to answer all 20 questions. I knew that the first question would lead to the second, and the second to the third, and I knew I had to answer all 20 questions with one single answer. And I just never felt more loved and supported. And I've had so many different experiences with these visions with all kinds of different spirits. But then when you come back down and you feel like little small me, I'm just taking out the garbage, and life feels very real and normal again, there's a part of you that still remembers there's something bigger that always has your back and is always supporting you. And so you're able to do, you know, bigger, more powerful things, because you just know this greater reality is there, even though you may not be able to physically see it with your eyes at that point. You could just remember these experiences you had.
You can remember that there is a being answering
Yeah.
every single question that you need answered until you
Yeah.
get to the question that's going to answer it all.
Totally.
Yeah, which feels so supportive to me. Listening about your experience, it feels so supportive, because so often I know that we may sit, we like in this, like you said, taking out garbage, writing an email, like the things we do every day, thinking this is so stupid. Like, why am I doing this? I want to do something bigger. I want to have more impact. And so often, including in the books you mentioned, Conversations with God, and now in your experience that you shared, it's like, but these little things really do matter. And these questions that we have that may seem some small lead us to lead us somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is so beautiful. It's just so beautiful. So you lead people through these experiences, and they can clean up 10 years of stuff, clean up whatever is happening for them. And I know it's never ended, by the way, so it's not like everything goes, which I think it's the part of the journey, part of human experience, is knowing that it never ends. Like, if you're gonna keep growing, you're gonna keep having stuff come in your way. Right?
Totally.
Yeah, I love that. Yet you then have this experience of knowing that, really sensing the oneness, really believing it, that you something has your back, right?
Yeah, and I would also add that, on top of that, like, people do have difficult experiences too, like often. But what I find is it in many ways gives you, when you really, really, the more deeply you connect with the idea that you're creating your reality, you start to become intentional about every little detail, from what you eat first thing in the morning to when you go to sleep to what you do in between. And it shows up in a lot of different ways that are really amazing for people. But like you said, it's not without challenges. I like to say that for me personally, and I think this echoes a lot of the people that we work with, that 90% of your life gets so much easier and so much better when you own that. And 10% of it gets exponentially harder, but it's so much more worth it, because it's like you mentioned, like in the beginning, you really sometimes just need to start with helping one immediate person in your reality, but eventually you really do grow to the point where now you're thinking about helping thousands and thousands or millions even, and really doing that, not just daydreaming about it. And it's way harder to help 1 million people than it is to help 1 or 2. And so your problems get exponentially harder. Suddenly you're now coordinating teams and employees, and the growth is in many ways more stressful, but it's such a more worthwhile problem to wake up and to be able to tackle. So, there are difficult experiences. I don't want to in any way downplay them, but I feel like it becomes more worth it, because they're in many ways problems of your own design that you're working at. And once I realized that, the human experience just has problems in it, and you're not going to reach this reality where you suddenly have it all figured out and there's nothing left to do. So you might as well make a worthwhile problem to work on that really lights you up, and you're going to enjoy the process along the way. And I think that makes such a huge difference for people.
Oh, this is so great. What I'm hearing you say is, and I so believe that, 2, create your own problems. Create the problems you want to be solving that lead you to a life you want to live, instead of dealing with problems other people put on your plate. Like, for example, problem of paying bills, right? Like you have to pay the bills. And because we still live in reality, and there are still so many of our viewers who still struggle with, I got to pay my bills, right? Like the immediate thing, right? Well, it's a problem you got to solve. Well, what if instead of, because right now you're choosing that problem, you really are, right? Like you're choosing that problem. What if instead of saying that, you actually gave yourself permission to settle on something you're going to be helping people with, building a business, and deal with the problems that come with that, instead of dealing with the problem of, I just got to pay my bill, what am I going to do? It's such a different level of existence. So it's like I keep asking, okay, what's the bigger problem I want to keep solving? So I'm building a team, right? And I'm like, this is the problem I want to be solving. I want to know what it's like to solve a problem of 4 people reporting to me, and me having to coordinate them, inspire them, empower them, pay them. Like, I want that problem, right?
Yeah, totally.
that's what I'm hearing you say. So, and it's such an uplifting, I mean, energetically, and I don't just mean uplifting emotionally, and it's uplifting energetically, like you keep raising yourself to what problem do I want to be solving? And it doesn't have to be you grow bigger business. It could be, instead of saying I don't want to eat sugar, you flip it around and you say I want to feel great, so I'm gonna juice. Like I know you just told me you were juicing,
Yeah.
right? I did a 3-day juice cleanse last week, and my problem was like, oh my gosh, how do I schedule my day so I get enough juice? Like it's not even a problem, but that's the problem I wanted to solve those 3 days. Like how do I get enough juice waiting for me so I get through the day? And I felt great. Like what if we get to start asking those questions? Like what problem do I want to be solving? That's power, right?
Yes, and you do get to ask those questions, Anna. So for the people listening, that's one of the beautiful things is that, you know, your mind is only going to do what you ask. So if you say, how am I going to pay those bills? It's going to struggle with coming up with an answer. If you say, how can I make today the healthiest day I've made it and juice a bunch of days, it'll struggle to figure that one out. But the second one is a lot better than the first, I think, personally.
I'm so there with you. Yeah. And speaking of purpose, it's like people keep asking, like, what am I here to do? Like, what's my purpose? What's my work? How about instead of asking that question, you ask, who is here to help me? And maybe it's somebody, maybe it's Frankie. Maybe you go, you check Frankie out, right? And instead of keep asking, like, what is it? Elevate your question and ask, what's my next step? Who is the person who can get me there? Right?
Yeah.
And like that, start asking questions that elevate instead of keeping you where that's so great. Like I had no idea we were going to go there, but I love it.
Yeah, and I got a couple ideas for your viewers, by the way, if they're asking what is my purpose.
Bring it.
You know, because I've been doing that for a long time, and for many, many years, I was really good at building purposeless businesses, ones that were solely out to serve me. And what I find is they always had a glass ceiling, and they were so much more frustrating, and you don't get to be yourself. You know, like I actually created a test I call my what up motherfucker test, which is like my real clients, you know, like we can say those kind of things, and in the business that were kind of purposeless, it was like I would have to be like, well, Mr. So-and-so, and it's a very good pleasure to meet you today, and you know, a very fake kind of social mask. And what I learned is that by going through this process and struggling with it for a long time is that most of what people say about finding your purpose is like 99 times out of 100 comes from people who aren't living it. And therefore you can like kind of like lovingly, but like throw that in the trash, because they usually say things like, just do what you love and you'll get paid. And you're like, are you doing what you love? No. Yeah. I tell you, I'm a garbage man, but do what you love, right?
Yeah.
And what I found is that that's certainly a piece of the puzzle, obviously, if you don't love what you're doing. But I would say there's two really big things that I think other people miss, and you have to really have all three. And when you get all three at the same time, I think it creates an exponential effect in your life that I call the quantum effect, because it really just makes things, it removes all the blocks that most people get stuck on. So in addition to like doing what you love, and this sounds really, really simple, but not everybody does this, you also have to be good at it. And so this becomes really amazing, because what you realize is the things that you love and the things that you're really good at, where those things overlap are where you're like the most productive. It's the easiest, you make the greatest contribution, and everything else somebody else is meant to do. So you don't even hang on to any tasks that don't fit in those. And there's also a third piece, Anna, and I think people forget that we live in this connected reality, and if you want to do this in a business sense especially, there's also like a market of people out there in the world, and I don't think enough people look into what does the market really need, and they don't realize there's a systematic way to look at and figure out where people are stuck and what they really need. And the biggest way, by the way, which most people don't even think to do, is just to fucking listen to them. So like take some time out of your day and just see what's going on for other people that you need to help and serve, and where they get stuck and what questions they have. And I find when you put those three things together, where yes, you should do what you love, but you also do what you're really naturally kind of gifted at, or you've worked hard to become good at, you know, whatever that is, and then also do something the world really, really needs. What happens is you show up in a really, really big way, because all of a sudden a day becomes enjoyable. The work you're doing is worthwhile and it's challenging. When you know you're really making a difference in people's lives in a big way, where they really need it, and that's not based on your own egoic assessment, which is how most people start businesses, self-included. So I'm not like judging anybody who did. Is that I started business, especially in the past, where I'm like, well, that sounds like a good idea to me, so let's go try it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so this led me to like trying, like I probably tried like at least 200 different ways to make money online. And it's funny because all of them actually work, but they're mostly not sustainable if you're not really like making a difference in people's lives. Because for one reason or another, you know, you'll feel conflicted about it. Mm-hmm. And when you do that, and then you know that the world really needs it, and you're showing up in a big way for, which usually is actually way easier than most people realize, because you're just helping people who were like you 10 years ago, who have the same problems you did. And so you totally already understand them. And what you find is when you do those three things, you reach a new space where you really do live your purpose, and there's almost no reason not to. And what you find is it gives you energy instead of taking it away from it. Like a lot of people you mentioned hate paying their bills, but it's one of those things where sometimes I'll go to the bathroom at 4 a.m. and I'll write down an idea and be like, that's really good. Our people are going to love that, right? Those are the kind of things that happen when you're doing something you love, that, you know, just a 30-second trip to the bathroom and back can be an inspiring moment, right? So, so I think when you do those three things, it eliminates why most people aren't living it, and you just get a way better experience out of it.
That is so great, because you're combining people. Very often when I speak to people, it's like they don't want to do what they've been doing, but I think a lot of it is because the way they've been doing it, or the reason behind what they've been doing, or who they've been while doing that, right? It's so life depleting that they're like, I'll do anything but that, right? And throw everything out the window. Where, like you just said, you've worked something hard. Either you worked to learn it, or you worked learning it while you were doing it, but you did it, right? And for a long time, there was a pretty good chance. And there are some people like me who like jumped from place to place, right? But there was always this theme that I could pull and say, oh, this is what I'm really good at. And it's so true. Like, why not use the experience you've already had in your life, and then do it from a learn how to do it in a way that you love it, and learn who are the people that need it. Instead of going up the hill, learn who are the people who need it. Listen, right? Who are the people that need it? And maybe there is some tweak. Like in my work, there is a way that you get to be doing the same work that changes everything. It's just the way you be about it is different, and everything changes. So this is really great. And I'm so happy that you brought it in, because I'm sure there is somebody listening right now and watching right now who's like, you just like, that's me. I don't want to keep doing what I've been doing.
Yeah.
I'm listening to you right now, Frankie.
Well, don't keep doing what you're doing if it's not bringing you fulfillment. There's no reason. Like, you know, I think a lot of people get this idea that it's that they can't for one reason or another. And if I promise you, there are people doing what you're doing already, or what you want to do, and they don't have some secret talent or gift that you can't acquire in most cases.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. When you get to talk to them, it's like, no, they just doing it because they decided to, and they went through whatever they had to, whether it's a plant medicine experience to remove their challenges, or whatever they did, they removed their challenges, and now they live a purposeful, fulfilling life like you.
Yeah. And I still have problems and challenges too, so don't think I got it all figured out.
Yeah, but you love waking up in the morning, don't you?
Yeah, and it's been really interesting because you know, I think when I was in my teenage years, I had 2 suicide attempts. So it's really interesting to think that I would wake up and be, you know, a person who would be just stoked beyond stoked to be like traveling the world, helping people, and seeing the difference it makes in people's lives, and, you know, building business and learning languages and reading books and juicing. And I don't know, every day is full of cool surprises. Let's say that.
Yeah, that's so amazing. Yeah, I love it. I love hearing what you are up to next. It's just so amazing. Like learning German now, full time.
Yeah.
It's really, really great. Oh, Frankie, this is so amazing. And you have brought us so much wisdom. So I know you have a gift for us that we get to download. Could you share about the gift? Because that's how we get to know you. That's how you guys get to know Frankie, is by downloading his gift. And can you just tell us about it?
Yeah, so if you guys really like that idea of discovering your life purpose, and especially if you're like me and want to go down that road of entrepreneurship, like the training we've had has really changed a lot of people's lives, and it really shows you, it goes deeper into what we just discussed, why most of the ideas that you're going to get on how to live your purpose come from people who aren't living it. So it's kind of dangerous to follow the advice of people who aren't living it. When you do it, you realize it's just a lot easier. So we have a free training that walks you through that. And if you're interested in that, obviously it talks about a little bit with my journey in plant medicine. If that's not for you, I would still tell you to go watch it, because you'll get benefit out of it nonetheless, even if, but if you're an entrepreneur interested in sacred plant medicine and want to discover your life purpose, then you must mark this on your calendar and watch it. And you can get that at sacredplantretreats.com /register. So just once more, sacredplantretreats.com/register.
Yeah. And
you really dig it.
There'll be a button underneath too.
Yes. Follow the button.
Yeah. Make it really easy because we want to make it easy. So there's the button right below this video. You guys already know the drill. Press the button, put the training on your schedule and watch it, because it's great. It's amazing. And you'll get to know Frankie and why he does what he does and how he does it, and how you can be a part of it. It's really great. Awesome. So Frankie, thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. I love how you brought in so many different pieces of our conversation in the Sacred Success Salon in this one interview. It's just so great. Thank you.
Yeah, you're awesome, by the way, too, Anna, for doing this.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. My absolute pleasure and honor. Yeah. So I do have one question that I would like to wrap up our interview with. And the question is, what does success for the world look like?
It's really interesting, because, man, that's a tough question to be asking.
I know.
I can tell you what I think it looks like on an individual level, and everybody being the snowflake that they are has probably a different answer to this.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, I once asked one of the most successful people I know, like, what's your definition of success? And he said, doing what I want, when I want, with who I want. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think most people, if you look at how they're currently living their lives in one form or another, they're not doing what they want, or they're not doing it with who they want, or they're not doing it when they want. Mm-hmm. And I think it really shows up in a lot of kind of awful ways in our society. And I don't know if I have all the answers for how to fix all the real challenges and the traumas and the wars and the crimes. But I think if more people like us do their part to do what they want, with who they want, when they want, you'll find that what you're doing may seem small to you at the time, but there's this incredible ripple effect that you have, where when you change one life, you change the family around them, you change the people they interact with, and your light has this infectious touch that is so much deeper than you probably realize when you think, I'm just doing this little task, and you don't realize that what a difference that really makes. For example, I had a friend who one day said, I thought I just did Facebook ads, and then he talked to some of his clients and realized that his really successful clients, he changed their lives, because he brought them like a whole new income stream that touched all their family, and suddenly they lost weight and got their health together and developed new and better friends and started seeing the world. And I think, for at least the people watching this who are really asking those deeper level questions, success for the world, I think for your world, looks specifically choosing the right people who really deeply in your soul are the kind of people you want to wake up and talk with and work with and really love on. And doing it when you want, to me, means, like, every entrepreneur I've met is a little bit different. Some work really great in the morning, some work really great at night, but doing what feels best and natural to you and embracing your way of living. And then when you want to do it, when I want, what I want. Yeah. So if you do those things, I think you'll have this way of living success for your own life. And I think, little by little, we can all change the world together. And I have no idea what that'll look like when it's finished, but I know it'll be more loving, and that alone will make it a much better place and a cooler planet to be a part of.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's so great. And I love your answer. It's amazing. Thank you for being a sport, for answering it. It's not an easy question, but we're bringing it up because that's where we are. So yeah, I love that. Frankie, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your insights, and your experience. Thank you for your free gift. You guys make sure you go down below this video and download it, watch the training, get into Frankie's world, see how he can help you. If you're interested in plant medicine, then you definitely have to go and check Frankie out. Go into one of his experiences and figure out what's stopping you from being who you are here to be, because we need you. The world right now needs you. Thank you, Frankie.
Thank you, Anna. This was awesome, by the way.
Thank you. And you guys, see you at the next interview. Bye for now.
So if you like this video and you want to discover what is my real life purpose, why am I really here, and also to build a successful, thriving business around that purpose where you get paid to do what you love, travel the world and have that freedom and flexibility, and using sacred plants to really accelerate that journey and make it happen faster for you, there's a link below this video. I put it in the top comment, so it's the first one you'll see as well. It's also available in the video description. Now, when you click that link, that will take you to a page where you can register for free for our 39-minute life purpose training. And again, it's 100% totally free, so all you have to do is simply enter your email, put in your first name, and this will get you started to show you exactly what you need to do to be able to live and get paid to do what you really love to do and what your purpose and your passion is on this earth. Again, if you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, as well in the comments below. Share what else you would like to see or what would be helpful to you or what else you need. And of course, we would love it if you subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to hit the notifications button so you never miss a new video. And that's all I have for you guys. So may the force be with you.